Zuba stood in the steaming kitchen. Her hands burned from hours of cooking. 4 meals, 4 different dishes, just to impress one man and his mother. The table was full. Her heart was hopeful. But as her husband Mika took one bite, he looked up and said, "It's okay, but my mum's food is better." That day, something inside her broke quietly. But what she rebuilt from that moment would shake his entire world. Zuba was a simple woman who grew up in a small, quiet town. Her parents didn't have much money, and she never had the chance to go to big schools or earn fancy certificates. But Zuba had a kind heart and a strong love. When she met Mika, she thought she had found her happy ending. Mika was charming, smart, and everything she ever dreamed of. He made her feel special, and soon they got married. Zuba was ready to give her whole heart to him and build a beautiful life together. She believed love was enough, but not everyone felt the same way. From the very first day she stepped into Mika's family house, she could feel something was wrong. His mother looked at her with cold eyes and forced smiles. Zuba tried to win her over with respect, kindness, and effort, but it never worked. Mika's mother believed her son deserved someone richer, someone from a better family, someone with more class. No matter how sweet Zuba was, the woman refused to see her as good enough. She would talk down to her, make snide comments, and treat her like she didn't belong. Zuba would often sit quietly, listening to the whispers behind her back. She'd hear things like, "She can't even speak proper English," or "My son married below his level." These words hurt deeply, but she never said anything. Instead, she worked harder. She cleaned more, cooked more, and tried to show everyone that she could be a good wife, a good daughter-in-law. But no matter what she did, Mika's mother never gave her a chance. She always found something wrong. What made it harder was that Mika never stood up for her. He stayed silent when his mother insulted Zuba. He never defended her or reminded his mother to be kind. Zuba felt alone in a house full of people. Her only wish was to be accepted, to feel like part of the family. She didn't want diamonds or gold, just a little love, a little respect. She hoped that one day they would see her heart and change their minds. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The coldness only grew. Still, Zuba kept loving Mika with all she had. She believed that love could change people, that kindness could melt even the hardest hearts. So she stayed. She smiled through the pain. She prayed every night for things to get better. All she ever wanted was to belong, not just as Mika's wife, but as a real part of the family. But the more she gave, the more invisible she became. And deep inside, a small part of her started to wonder, how long could she keep trying before something inside her broke? From the very first day Zuba stepped into Mika's family house as a new wife, she felt the cold wind of rejection. Mika's mother didn't even try to hide her dislike. She looked Zuba up and down and said with no smile, "My son deserves better." That sentence stayed in Zuba's heart like a wound that wouldn't heal. Mika's mother never gave her a chance. She picked on everything, the way Zuba dressed, the way she spoke, and even the family she came from. "You don't look like someone who belongs here," she would often say, shaking her head. Zuba would try to smile and stay polite, hoping that one day the woman would warm up to her, but it only got worse. If Zuba wore a simple dress, Mika's mother would say, "Is that what you call fashion?" If Zuba spoke gently with her village accent, the woman would roll her eyes and mumble, "Can't you speak like a city woman?" Nothing was ever good enough. And the hardest part was, Mika said nothing. He stayed quiet, pretending not to notice the way his mother was tearing Zuba down piece by piece. But the biggest insult came whenever Zuba cooked. She would spend hours in the kitchen, carefully preparing meals with love. She wanted to please the family and show that she was trying. But every time she served the food, Mika's mother would taste it, frown, and say sharply, "I don't eat tasteless food." Sometimes she wouldn't even touch the plate. She would push it aside like it was garbage. Zuba's heart would drop, but she wouldn't show it. She would simply clean up and try harder next time, even though she knew what to expect. Each day in that house felt like a test she could never pass. No matter how kind, polite, or helpful she was, Mika's mother always found a reason to make her feel small. The woman even complained to visitors, saying things like, "I told my son not to marry her, but he didn't listen." She embarrassed Zuba in front of others, made cruel jokes, and treated her like a servant rather than a daughter-in-law. And the most painful part was that Mika, the man Zuba loved with all her heart, just sat and watched. He never told his mother to stop, never stood up for his wife. Zuba was fighting alone, hoping that love would be enough to change things. But with every word his mother said, it became clear this house was never meant to feel like home for her. And deep down, Zuba started to wonder if love was enough when respect was missing. Zuba was tired of being treated like she didn't belong. She had tried to stay quiet, tried to ignore the harsh words from her mother-in-law, and hoped things would get better with time. But nothing changed. So one day, she made a decision. She would try harder. She still believed in love. She still wanted peace in her home. She wanted her husband to smile at her the way he used to. And more than anything, she wanted his mother to finally see her not as a mistake, but as a wife who was trying her best. It was Mika's birthday, and Zuba saw it as a perfect chance. She thought, if I can make this day special, maybe things will change. That night, while everyone slept, she sat on her phone, searching for all of Mika's favorite meals, especially the ones his mother used to make when he was a child. She wrote everything down, step by step, because she didn't want to make even the smallest mistake. She watched cooking videos, read food blogs, and even called an old friend to ask for tips. As soon as the sun came up, she entered the kitchen and began to cook. The whole house was quiet, but the kitchen was alive. Zuba didn't stop for a break. Her hands moved non-stop, slicing onions, pounding spices, mixing ingredients. The heat from the stove made sweat run down her face, but she didn't care. She was on a mission. This wasn't just cooking. This was her heart on a plate. She made 4 different meals, 4 full traditional dishes, each one carefully prepared with love and attention. There was no help. No one offered to assist. Still, she stood there all day, her back aching, her hands burning, but her spirit hopeful. Each dish reminded her of a memory Mika once shared. Each pot on the fire felt like a gift she was wrapping with her soul. By the time evening came, the table was full. The smell of delicious food filled the house. She set everything beautifully, clean plates, fresh drinks, even a little flower in the center of the table. Zuba changed into a neat dress, wiped her hands, and waited. Her heart was beating fast. She had done everything right. She had poured her love into every bite. She believed, truly believed, that this might be the moment things would finally change. She imagined Mika smiling, maybe even hugging her. She pictured his mother nodding in approval, saying something kind for once. She didn't want a trophy. She didn't want to be praised. She just wanted to be seen, to be valued, to feel like she mattered in her own home. That night, Zuba wasn't just serving food. She was offering a piece of herself. All she wanted was for someone, anyone, to notice. Zuba stood by the dining table, her hands slightly shaking, her eyes filled with hope. She had spent the whole day in the kitchen, cooking with love, remembering every detail Mika had ever shared about his favorite meals. Her feet hurt, her back ached, but her heart beat fast with excitement. Finally, she would be seen. Finally, they would know how much she cared. Mika sat down first, then his mother. The table was full of delicious food. The smell was warm and inviting. Zuba quietly sat near them, waiting for their reactions, her hands resting on her lap. Mika picked up his spoon, took a bite of one dish, then another. He didn't say much, just chewed for a while, then nodded a little and said, "It's all right, but my mum's food is better." Just like that. His words were like cold water on a flame. His mother chuckled, loud and sharp. "Of course, my food will always be better," she said, smirking proudly, looking straight at Zuba. Her laugh wasn't just a laugh, it was a slap, an insult wrapped in sugar. Zuba looked at them, both of them, and for a moment, her heart paused. She had poured herself into that meal. Every spoonful had her sweat, her hope, her silent prayer. But they didn't see that, or maybe they saw and didn't care. Zuba didn't say a word. She didn't ask for praise. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. Instead, she stood up slowly, quietly, picked up the empty plates one by one, walked to the sink. The water ran. The plates clinked gently. She washed them calmly, like nothing had happened. But inside her, everything was breaking. Her dreams, the dream of a warm family, of being accepted, of being appreciated, they started slipping away like soap bubbles in the water. She had tried so hard, She had hoped so much, but all she got was a shrug and a laugh. As the bubbles rose and popped in the sink, something inside her heart also popped. She didn't scream, she didn't shout, but in that quiet moment, Zuba changed. The girl who once begged to be seen, to be loved, to belong, she was fading, and a new Zuba was starting to rise. One who was tired of trying, one who was beginning to realize her worth was not in their approval. She kept washing. The water was warm, but her heart was cold. That moment, that simple insult, became the turning point. Something had shifted, and there was no going back. Zuba changed quietly. She didn't shout or fight. She didn't complain to Mika or beg his mother to treat her better. She just stopped trying. One morning, she woke up and realized something deep in her heart. She was tired of giving her all and getting nothing in return. Tired of always walking on eggshells, trying to please people who never saw her worth. So, she decided to change. Not them, but herself. She stopped asking Mika what he wanted for dinner. She no longer waited by the door with his slippers. She didn't sit through his mother's constant jabs and insults with a fake smile anymore. Instead, she began to turn her attention inward. For the first time in a long while, Zuba started thinking about herself, what she loved, what she dreamed about, what made her heart come alive. She picked up her old books again, the ones she used to enjoy before marriage. She would read at night after everyone had gone to sleep, her eyes lighting up with every page. She also signed up for free online courses. Secretly, she didn't tell Mika because she knew he wouldn't care, but that didn't stop her. While they thought she was wasting time, Zuba was learning, growing, changing. She also found a small community center nearby where she started volunteering. It was a simple place, filled with children, women, and elderly people who needed help and company. The first day she walked in, someone said, "Thank you for coming." Just those words, "Thank you," made her eyes water. She hadn't heard that in so long. At the center, people noticed her. They smiled when they saw her. They listened when she spoke. Slowly, a light returned to her eyes. At home, Mika barely noticed the difference. He was too busy with work, his phone, or complaining about small things. His mother still made comments, but Zuba didn't let them touch her anymore. She didn't argue. She just smiled politely and walked away. The same woman who once tried so hard to belong was now learning how to stand on her own. Zuba had given everything, her time, her love, her dreams, and all she got in return were crumbs. Small moments of kindness that disappeared quickly. She had begged to be seen, to be loved, to be accepted, but now she no longer begged. She chose herself, silently, gracefully, with a soft strength that no one saw coming. Her transformation was quiet, but powerful, and it had only just begun. Weeks went by, and Zuba kept changing, not just in her heart, but in her actions too. One day, while helping out at the community center, she made a big pot of her special jollof rice. Everyone loved it. One lady said, "Zuba, you should sell this." At first, Zuba laughed, but later that night, as she sat quietly with her notebook, an idea started to grow. She reached out to her old friend, Aisha, someone who always believed in her. Together they started cooking on weekends, just small meals at first, for neighbors, friends, and people from the community center. They didn't have much, just one stove, some borrowed pots, and a lot of hope. But the taste, it was magic. Each dish had Zuba's heart in it. Slowly, people started coming back, asking for more. Some even placed orders for birthdays, weddings, and office parties. Zuba was working hard, but she wasn't tired like before. This time it felt different. She was doing something for herself, something she loved. She would wake up early, tie her scarf, put on her apron, and hum to herself as she cooked. There was joy in her steps, pride in her eyes. She wasn't just in the kitchen, she was building something of her own. Her friend Aisha helped post their meals online, pictures, short videos, and fun captions. One day, Aisha uploaded a behind-the-scenes video of Zuba cooking with love, smiling, adding spices, plating with care. She called it, "The Hidden Chef Who Deserves a Michelin Star." The video went viral within days. People shared it, commented, praised the mystery woman with golden hands. Orders doubled, then tripled. Still, at home, Mika didn't notice much. He didn't ask where Zuba went or why she seemed happier. He was too busy scrolling through his phone, lost in his own world. Until one day, Someone tagged him in a viral video with his own name in the comments. Curious, he clicked the link. There she was, Zuba, in the kitchen, smiling, confident, graceful. The world was celebrating her, clapping for her, calling her a star. For the first time, Mika looked at her like he was seeing her again. But Zuba wasn't looking back. She was focused on her dreams now. The woman who once begged for love was now getting applause from strangers. The same food his mother once called tasteless was now making people cry with joy. Zuba had gone from silent tears in the kitchen to standing tall in her own light. And this was just the beginning. Zuba's life started to change fast. Her small catering business grew bigger and bigger. More people wanted to taste her food. Orders came in every day, and she was always busy cooking, planning, and delivering. She was no longer just a wife in the kitchen. She was now a boss. Her name was on flyers, her food was in people's homes, and her smile was on screens. People loved her story. They wanted to meet the woman who turned pain into purpose. Soon, she started making more money than Mika. While he still worked his regular job, Zuba was now running a full business. She hired helpers, bought new kitchen equipment, and even rented a small space for cooking. Her weekends were fully booked. Some clients even had to wait weeks for her food. Her flavors, her kindness, and her story touched people's hearts. One day, she got an invitation to speak on a morning TV show. At first, she was nervous. "Me? On TV?" she asked. But her friend Aisha said, "Yes, Zuba, people need to hear your story." So she wore her best dress, styled her hair, and walked into the studio with her head held high. The host welcomed her warmly. They talked about her journey, her food, and her courage. Then, the host took a spoonful of Zuba's jollof rice, closed her eyes, and smiled. "Your food tastes like love," she said. Zuba froze for a second. That one sentence brought back a memory. Mika, sitting at their dining table, tasting her food, shrugging and saying, "It's all right, but my mum's food is better." That moment had once broken her heart. But now, someone on national TV was praising her food like it was gold. Zuba smiled softly, not out of pride, but from deep strength. She had come a long way, from being told she wasn't good enough, to being celebrated by strangers. She didn't say much, just a quiet, "Thank you." But inside her heart, fireworks were going off. Later that evening, Mika saw the interview on TV. He sat quietly, watching his wife speak with grace and confidence. The same woman he used to ignore. The same woman who once begged for his approval. Now, the world was clapping for her. Zuba didn't need his applause anymore. She had her own. The tables had turned, not with loud noise, but with quiet power. And Mika, he realized he wasn't the center of her world anymore. Zuba had become her own sun. One quiet afternoon, Zuba was at her office, checking orders and planning deliveries. Business was good, and she finally felt peace in her heart. Suddenly, the door opened. She looked up, and there she was, Mika's mother, the same woman who once made her feel small, who had called her food tasteless, who laughed at her dreams. Zuba froze for a second, surprised. She didn't expect her here. Mika's mother didn't smile much, but she looked around, clearly impressed by how neat and professional everything looked. "Everyone's talking about your food," she said slowly, like the words were hard to say. "I was wondering if I could try it." Zuba paused, then nodded politely. She went into the kitchen and carefully prepared a plate. Not just any meal. She made the same dish Mika's mother had once insulted. The one she called tasteless. The one that made Zuba cry inside. But today, Zuba didn't cook it with fear or pain. She cooked it with calm hands, with confidence, with grace. She placed the food gently in front of the woman who once broke her heart. Mika's mother didn't speak. She picked up the spoon and took a bite, then another, then another. The room was quiet, except for the soft sound of eating. No one rushed her. Zuba just stood there, watching, waiting. After a few minutes, Mika's mother put her spoon down. She looked at Zuba, her eyes softer than usual. Then she leaned closer and whispered something Zuba thought she'd never hear. "It's better than mine." That one sentence was heavy. It carried years of judgment, pride, and silence. But it also carried a hint of respect, a tiny spark of apology, hidden in just 5 words. Zuba didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just nodded and said, "Thank you." Inside her, a storm was settling. She had spent years chasing love and approval from this woman. She had worked so hard to belong, to be seen, to be enough. And now, Here was the same mother-in-law, sitting in her office, eating her food, asking to taste what she once mocked. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't a win to brag about, it was just proof that Zuba had grown, that she had bloomed, that she didn't need their approval anymore to feel worthy. Zuba walked her out kindly. Mika's mother didn't say much else, but as she left, she turned back and gave Zuba one last look, a look that said, "I see you now." And for Zuba, that was enough. One evening, just when Zuba was closing her office, she heard a knock at the door. It was Mika. He stood there, looking nervous, holding a big bouquet of flowers. His face was full of regret. For the first time, he wasn't proud or distant. He was just lost. He stepped closer and said, "Zuba, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have supported you. I should have loved you better. I'm proud of you now." His voice was shaking. He tried to smile, hoping she would forgive him like she always did in the past. But Zuba didn't rush into his arms. She didn't cry. She didn't get excited like the old Zuba would have. She just looked at him calmly, like someone who had seen too much, learned too much, grown too much. She gently took the flowers from him, placed them on a nearby table, and said, in a steady voice, "You loved your mother's cooking more than your wife's heart." Her words were soft, but they hit harder than a scream. Mika blinked, not knowing what to say. Then Zuba reached into her bag and pulled out a brown envelope. She handed it to him without a smile. Mika opened it, and his face went pale. Divorce papers. She looked him in the eyes and said, "You can eat her food forever. I'll feed the world." Her words were strong, not bitter. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was simply done living a small life to please people who never valued her. Mika tried to speak, tried to explain, but Zuba had already turned away, walking back into her office where her dreams were waiting for her. She didn't look back. She didn't need his approval anymore. She didn't need his apology either. The man who once took her love for granted now stood alone, holding flowers that were too late, regrets that were too heavy, and memories that could no longer fix anything. As Zuba walked forward into her new life, Mika stayed frozen in the past he had destroyed with his own hands. And the world was waiting for Zuba, ready to taste her love, ready to celebrate the woman who finally chose herself over everything else. Zuba's name was now everywhere, on TV, in magazines, and all over social media. But she didn't let the fame get to her head. She remembered her past, every painful moment, every insult, every tear she had swallowed. Instead of holding on to that pain, she turned it into power. She wanted to help others who had felt the same. Women who were told they weren't good enough, who were always behind the kitchen door, unseen and unheard. So she opened a small cooking school, but not just any school. It was a place for women who had no support, no money, and no one to believe in them. She named it 4 Plates. When someone asked why, she smiled and said, "Because on the worst day of my life, I cooked 4 meals for love and got nothing back. But now, these 4 plates will feed dreams." 4 Plates quickly grew. More women joined. Some had been abused, some abandoned, some laughed at, just like she was. But in her academy, they found more than recipes. They found confidence, sisterhood, and a reason to believe in themselves. Zuba didn't just teach them how to cook. She taught them how to rise. Every few months, the school held a graduation. Families came, cameras came. But the best part, Zuba always gave a speech. Every time her voice was calm but powerful, and every time she shared a piece of her journey. One day, she would begin, standing before the smiling faces of her students. "I was told my best wasn't enough, that my food was tasteless, that I didn't belong. So I became more than they ever expected, not to prove them wrong, but to show myself what I could be." The room would always go quiet. Some cried, some clapped, some just sat there, stunned, watching the woman who once washed dishes in silence now stand proud as a leader. Zuba didn't just serve meals anymore. She served hope. She served courage. She served second chances. And every woman who walked out of 4 Plates carried not just a certificate, but a new story to tell. Zuba had been broken, ignored, mocked, but now she was the woman who fed nations, healed hearts, and built a table big enough for every forgotten soul to sit at. And she did it all with grace. Not because they believed in her, but because she finally believed in herself.